Hi there, welcome to my tutorial on making your own Shekere. Here we have a few examples of Shekeres. This one I've made myself completely from scratch. This one is I guess a store-bought one, if you could say. This is from Ghana, and I had bought it through a professor that I've had in the past. And this one is a little combination. I actually had the netting I replaced myself because it wore out and it broke in many places. And this, if you listen to the difference in the sound of these instruments, of course, it has a lot to do with all parts of the construction. So this one, for example, this is my first ever Shekere. If you notice, I simply fasten the top with a tie up here. Very easy. These are, of course, extremely cheap and simple to come by. So, taking the top off, we can analyze, figure out what's going on here. So I have a few examples of gourds, large ones, smaller ones. This one is, these are both local ones from a farmer's market. Okay. Now, if you notice the difference in the color, there's going to be natural variations depending on the type of gourd that you choose. But you can also stain it a little bit. Now, I did not stain this particular one. Actually, neither one. But I have played this one a lot. And if you notice, it does get a little bit darker where you tend to hold it right here. Of course, oils from your hands and things. So it's definitely pronouncedly darker right here. I did, of course, use a little bit of shellac as well to give it a little bit of a sheen, a little bit of protection. And there's the hole that you need to drill in it in order to get the seeds out, and well, I like to call the guts. This one is much lighter. The skin of it is much thinner, and as a result, I wasn't sure if it would make a good Shekere or not. So I took Elmer's glue and I put about maybe a half a bottle worth inside and moved the gourd around really slowly, let it coat all of the inside surfaces, and I did that a few times. To kind of fill in any potential cracks that might be there. And this is just a good solid gourd. This is also one that I purchased from Ghana. So this is actually an Adenkum type gourd, but I might make it into a Shekere sometime. Last but not least, if you're really looking for an indestructible and cheap solution, this is actually a milk bottle, and you can use this for a really cheap gourd substitute, and it's pretty much indestructible. Of course, if you have let's say small kids that are using these. I did a quick sample Shekere, and here's the netting. I just used any old beads that I had lying around, which of course is why the color combination is really horrible. So take a look at that, and you put it on here, and I'll just use the same wire tie that I had from earlier. And what you end up with is that kind of a sound. Now it has sort of a hollow, plasticky tone to it, so the tone is not great. If you cover up the hole while you're playing, or use a piece of tape or something like that, it's maybe a little bit better. So you hear the difference. But it's still not great. Now, listening to these others, of course, this is a really high tone, and these are little seed beads, and I can't remember the name of the seeds that are on here. I'm sure somebody will tell me in the comments. So that one's really high pitched. This one is my favorite Shekere. It's ridiculously loud, and really good for just doing straight beats. Filling in the sound of an ensemble. Now this one, this was my first attempt at a Shekere, and the sound of it is it's pretty good. It is, however, really big, and it's unwieldy. And I think it would be more impressive had I gotten the beadwork right. And this will bring me to our next subject. Of course, is the start of the construction of these things. If you notice, what you have here are pairs of knots going all the way around this collar, and you take one side of each pair of knots and you tie it to its neighbor, and that's where you put your beads on. Now I started by just putting on one, and that wasn't nearly enough, and it didn't give it at all, you know, the sound that I wanted. And so I said, oh, well, I'll just put 2 on there. Again, not nearly enough. What I ended up doing was putting 2 on each side, so putting 4 on each knot basically, and then running that for the rest of the way down. I should have done that the entire time, and you'll see why I didn't go back and undo the entire thing. It's actually more labor intensive to do that. It'd be easier just to completely trash it and start fresh. For the Shekere today, I'm going to use this nice medium size, very nice gourd. This is actually my my Adenkum gourd, so it has that little kind of thump to it. But since the Shekere nets are removable, they're very, very easy to change from one thing to the other. Next, of course, we have the beads. This is probably the biggest question that people have is what kind of beads to use. I use these standard cheap, they're called pony beads, and they're very inexpensive. I think it's about $7 or $8 for a pound of them of assorted colors. And of course you can get individual colors in bags as well. That's actually probably the more way to go if you want to be a little bit more artistic with what you're doing. Me, I just kind of pick and choose. And for example, my nice rainbow colored Shekere over here, if you notice, it isn't totally consistent. I had run out of green, I think, when I was putting it together. So, you know, I just threw some blue on there. Still looks nice. Still plays just fine. The sound is really good. Pony beads do give you a pretty bright sound. And they're very, very durable, however. And, you know, these are things that can last a long time. And then, of course, we have string. For this, I'm going to be using nylon. Now, I've made them. In fact, this is the rainbow colored one. If you notice, it is a little bit different. This is actually cotton string on this one, and the cotton was you know, it was about the same to work with. It doesn't unravel the same way that nylon does, but there's a quick, easy solution to that. But I think nylon is going to be more durable in the long run. I've heard good and bad things, but it's also very inexpensive. And then last but not least, I'm going to try using paracord today for the collar. I've never used it before, so we'll see. But it does, you know, it's a nylon cord. If you notice, it's a cable corded side of a cord here, so I think it'll work really well. And then this is my sort of my secret weapon, really thin super glue. Now, if you want your Shekeres to be student proof, and I do, because the ones that I make I use in class. Things don't unravel when they're glued, so I will glue every knot that I use. Even a simple square knot like the one on the collar, and this is just using clothesline, I'll put a couple of drops of glue, and because it's so thin, it will wick into the cord, and it'll freeze each knot into a solid mass. Okay, if you can see right here, this knot, while it looks loose, is not moving at all because it's been sort of frozen solid with super glue. Okay, and I think it gives it a lot more durability, but it means it's also a one-shot deal, so if you mess up, it's not going to be an easy thing to go back and undo. But that's really not a problem. That's not really an issue. So, all right, now to the construction phase. Since this will be a fairly small Shekere, that'll be much easier. I realize the only thing I'm really missing is a pair of scissors, but I've got a tiny little pocket knife that I can use as well. Okay, so first thing we need to do is make a collar. Okay, the collar is, now of course I bought 25 feet of paracord for $3, and this will probably last me, I don't know, the rest of my life. You know, it doesn't take much for the collar. Of course, it's a pretty small amount of material. So, and I'm not even going to take this out of the package. And just going to kind of unravel, I don't know, about a foot of it or so. Okay, let's get that out of there, and then we'll just yank it. And that's obviously plenty long. and I'm just going to cut it. There we go. Okay. For the collar, I usually want to go. You want to go down a little bit, a little ways down the gourd. So you see here, and you know, there's no real huge amount of measuring involved. Basically, you want to think, okay, well, here's my gourd. Here's where I want the collar, and I want the beading to start. You don't want to have it too high up, because you want to be able to fit all of the string pairs around the outside that are going to hold your beads. So you want it big enough to hold your, you know, all of the beads that you want to use. But this is going to be a smaller one. It'll probably be a lighter sound to it. So you know, we kind of have to keep that in mind. So I've heard people use clamps here, and they use just little tiny you know, clamps that are designed for paracord. I've not used them before. So what I do is I just pinch it, and then I pull the gourd out, and then I just kind of think about, like, this is how big my piece is going to be, and I just use a standard square knot, you know, like the one you'd use to tie your shoes. Double tie it, but not too terribly tightly, because you want to be able to possibly change the size of it. Okay, try it out. All right, yeah, that looks pretty good. If it looks good, then go ahead and tie it substantially tighter. Okay, and check it again. You know, they always say in carpentry, measure twice, cut once. This is absolutely the case here as well. And once you've got your collar done, which it looks pretty good, okay, and I'm going to use my secret weapon here. Now, of course, nylon is slippery stuff. It is not, see right there, in fact, the knot slipped just a little bit. Alright, so what we want to make sure is that this knot, especially of all of them, this knot is not going to move. And we'll see what happens with this glue. So dribble a little to see what happens. It just wicks directly into it. And of course, this super glue, cyanoacrylate, it reacts with plastics. And of course, nylon is a plastic. So it'll kind of, well, chemically speaking at least, it'll kind of melt into it and make it solid. Okay, now last but not least, measurements. So what you have to do is think about your shaker, how big you want this to be. The nice thing is this is basically a hand span for me, so it's really easy for me to measure it. I'm just going to do basically like this kind of a measurement. And I remember the figure of doing a little bit of research and trial and error of 8 times. So you figure out this length, and then you go 8 times the amount. Okay, and that's how much you want to cut your strings. Okay, so you can do it in a couple of different ways. All right, you can do it this way also, and just think, okay, well, here's 1, and then hand it off back and forth. There's 2. There's 3, 4, and it's approximate, you know, 5, 6. Oops, dropped my string. 7, 8, plus some. Now, here's the other key. Because this is nylon, we don't want to cut it. Cutting it is going to result in fraying, but that's why we have our candle here. A leftover from Christmas time, so fantastic. So we find where we want to cut it, and you don't even cut it, you just draw it through the flame. Point, done. Okay, and the instant that happens, it parts, and you can see it makes this nice little bonded kind of end here. Now, of course, once this is done, now you have a template, and you can measure everything from this initial string. I notice my end here is fraying, and I'm going to go ahead and melt that just a little bit. Okay, here we go. Obviously, you're working with a candle here. Do I really have to say to not burn yourself? Yes, I do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and measure out the next one. There it is. Boink, done. Okay, and then I just do it again. And here's what I'm doing, right? I have the old string on the left. I have the new string on the right. The reel is actually on the floor, sitting on top of my foot right now. So I just draw it through, and I keep it pinched here. Okay, give you a little bit more of a close-up. I keep it pinched, just pull it through. pull it through when I get close, and then I just put a fingernail there, and that's where we want to melt it. Boink, done. Okay, there's another one. I will do this again. Now, how many times? That's a good question, and an important question. One of the factors in how your Shekere is going to sound is, of course, the number of beads that are on it. And the number of beads that are on it is governed by not only how many you put on each knot, each pair that you make, but how many pairs you have. Now, you don't want so many that you spend, 5 days tying knots. It can get a little bit excessive. Plus, you literally won't have enough room on your gourd. So think about how big your collar is. If our collar is this big around, and we have, let's say, one every, even just to use a simple measurement, like the tip of my finger here, or the length of my fingernail or something, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Let's say like 14 or 13. 13 sounds like a nice even number. Ha, ha, funny. So we'll do 13. Maybe it's lucky, maybe it's unlucky. I don't really care. Keep in mind that this is not a precision guided process here. Okay, it doesn't have to be. You're just making a Shekere. Okay, so I have 4 here plus my first, so that gives me 5. So here goes number 6. Let's measure this out and probably speed it up. Okay, there's number 6. And we're back. Okay, now I have my collar, I have my strings, all 13 of them cut to an approximate length. They're all pretty close, and that's close enough for rock and roll, as they say. And then, of course, I have my gourd, and I'm going to go ahead and trim the ends off of this, and I might make it a little bit prettier later on, and trim it a little bit closer. It just depends on how it looks and how it works. Again, I've never used paracord before, so this is all a big experiment. See, that's the cool thing. This stuff is all really cheap. Buying one of these online, man, I mean, a shaker like this is probably $40 or $50. And the gourd itself, like the huge one, and my wife actually bought this at a farmer's market. I think it was $3. It takes a long time to dry them. I'm not going to get into that here. So with this paracord, I've got enough paracord to make 5,000 Shekeres out of that, and the beads in the string make a lot. And other than that, it's time. And when you're sitting around in the winter and you're binge watching Lost or something like that, it's a great little activity to do. Okay, the knots. So here's what we do. First of all, I'm going to get these out of the way so you can see a little bit clearer. First thing we do is we loop this in half. Okay, so I have measured it out. It's in half, and right away, hopefully you realize that making these things 8 times as long as you want to cover is necessary. Okay, because you're already cutting it in half. All right, so we have a loop at the end, and we have the 2 free ends. Now here's the trick, and it's an easy little trick. You put the loop, I'll give you a close-up here. Put the loop under the collar, okay? Put the loop under the collar, and then you put the 2 ends through the loop. You just set it down. I wish I had 3 hands. Okay, pull it through, and then there's your first knot. Now, it doesn't look like much of a knot right now because it's not tight. So, take it before you tighten it, and move it around exactly where you want it. I like to put one right on the first side of the knot, of the initial knot that I make, and I kind of tug it a little bit, tighten it up, make sure it's set, and then we hit it with the glue. Okay. These, now I think even if you're not going to glue every single part of your Shekere, I think gluing these initial knots in the collar is a good idea. It just makes them solid, and it makes things not move as much. It's one thing to have to wrestle with, a couple hundred knots on a Shekere net. It's another thing if the knots themselves are moving around up here. You definitely don't want that to happen. Okay, and I'm sure the masters at this stuff that make it, for real, and the country of origin and stuff, they probably don't even have to worry about that. But I do. So I'm going to go ahead and glue it. And let's see another one. Here's my loop. I'll show you once again. Bring the loop underneath. Here's the string coming out. Don't want to get it tangled. Okay, and it goes through the loop. And then it comes up and over. Now that's obviously way too close. We have 13 knots, so here's the thing. Let's move it around to the halfway point. You definitely want even coverage. Okay, you want the same number on each side. So 13, and now we're down to 11. So we'll put 5 on one side of this and 6 on the other. So make this a little bit over towards the other knot. Okay, and then hit it with a little bit of glue. This is going to be my thing. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of glue. Going to hit it with a little bit of glue. Doink. Done. You see how quickly that wicks into there, though. It's kind of nifty. Of course, again, that's because it's thin. Extreme power. Thin glue. It's extreme power. Okay, sorry. Alright, so here's our first pair. We're going to put 5 there, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over here. We should be good to go. And I'll do that probably in high speed. Here we go. And we're back. Okay, so I have half right now. And again, I want to make sure that everything is, evenly spaced out around the outside here. I'm going to move my knots over here and there if I need to. And then go through and put a little drop of glue. A little drop of glue on each one of those so that they don't move. Again, with cotton, I said earlier, cotton doesn't tend to slip as much. That is true, but it's the durability factor. I think nylon is going to last longer in the long run. It's what we're looking for here. Something that'll be around for a long, long, long time. Okay, so there's that. Drip of glue in there. Occasional teacher of mine once said, we're looking for a high average. Those are words of wisdom. High average. So there it is. There's half. I'll do the other half off camera, and I'll be back to you real soon. Alright, welcome back. You can see I have, first of all, I am such an inventor. I have made a place to hold my gourd with a towel. Yeah, because I got tired of it falling around and stuff. So, as you can see, of course, the outside here, we have the netting. It's all ready to go. This is what I like to call the jellyfish stage, for obvious reasons. It's jellyfish. It's very nifty. Now, ideally, you'd have some sort of thing to hang this from, and you could do all the knot work and stuff while it hung there. But this is okay too. This works all right. To set it on something and just work on a surface like this, that works quite nicely. Okay, now, so let's talk beads here. First of all, we need a color combination. I think I'm going to use these nifty clear ones because they're nifty and they're clear. And I don't like to think about it much. I know some people do some really cool patterns and things, and it just, just requires too much thought. And yeah, I'm a lazy person, I guess. So I've got my beads. I'm going to use the clear beads. Maybe I'll mix. I don't know. I've got some opaque ones and I've got some clear ones. I have a lot of beads, so yeah, you know, we'll see how we feel. Just make sure before you start a row of color, learn from my lesson, and make sure you have enough. You know, even in the smaller rows as you get towards the bottom, you're still going to use the same number of beads, at least in theory, unless you choose to not do that. Okay, so, well, here's the deal. What we have, of course, all these different pairs of knots, and to actually make the Shekere, what you're going to basically do, since we have all of these pairs of strings hanging down, you're going to take one string from each pair, and you're basically going to tie it to its neighbor. You're going to do that all the way around. Okay? Now, the type of knot that you can use for this, well, you can use a square knot, yes, but it's a real pain to do that. There's a much easier method. There's my jellyfish. My brain is just a jellyfish. Okay, so there's an easier method with this one. You're basically going to take this whole thing, okay, as a pair, and you're going to just do a loop knot, okay? So you're going to bring this through in the middle here, okay? Well, let's just get down to it. How about that, all right? Let's start with, I don't know, this funky looking peach color. Sure, why not? Again, I'm not all on ceremony here and trying to make a cool design, although I do like cool designs, so maybe I'll try a little something here. Okay, so the first one, we'll do this funky, weird neon orange peach thing. Neon orange pink peach thing. Okay, so and then we just loop this around like a so. I lost it. Where did it go? Oh man! Wait, there it is. Okay, and then we just we bring it through like this, like this. Okay, and if it's too far away, then you just need to, you know, move it a little bit, get a little bit in there, a little closer, a little cozy with it. Okay, push it down like that, and there we are. Okay, and there's the loop knot. And the nice thing about the loop knot there is that it doesn't make a big blob and then the string goes off in different directions, which is what you get with a square knot. A loop knot, it's a very efficient little way, and then the string hangs straight down from it, which is a really nice thing. Now, in my early Shekeres, I used square knots for all of them, and not fun. It works, you know. Like I say, it's not a huge ceremonial thing. You do it the wrong way, but it still works correctly, then who cares? But this is a time saver, big time saver. So, yeah, so here, let's do this one again. I'll show you a little bit of a close-up, and then I'm going to probably do off-camera for most of this. Okay, here is the knot tying process. Once again, a little bit zoomed in. We push our beads up all the way. We're going to make a nice, happy loop like here, okay, and then we're going to bring those guys through the center, right? And I want to keep it as far up there as I can, really. Well, really, you don't want to keep it as far up there as you can. What you want to do is to make sure it's even with all of the other knots. So right now it's a little bit too low, so I'm going to loosen up the knot just a little. I want to make sure that it is even with the one that I did before, okay? If it's not, then you'll get these layers and the knots will kind of move in a spiral kind of pattern, and you know, it's not great looking. Okay, so there's that one. I'll do one more on camera, and then I will kind of go off camera for a while and check back in with you in a little while. So here we go. One more. Putting 2 beads on each string. Alright, and it goes all the way down. We let them down. And we do our nice, happy little loop knot. Okay, here it is. Here's the knot. We're going around, and then under here, and through, and then we get our finger out because we need it. Okay, yeah, that one's pretty good. Okay. Alright, our first layer is done. Tied knots around the outside. Notice that one's up a little bit too high compared to a lot of the ones around it, but it's okay. It'll look ragged at first, and then when you get everything all completely done, it'll all just kind of even out at the end. So again, don't fuss about it too much. It's the end product that that's the thing that matters. So, all right, so we have the second layer done. Looks like we're going to need maybe 2, 3 more, maybe a fourth. I doubt it though. Probably 3 more would be fine. And of course you'll have a bunch of this at the top to gather up and such, and you'll have a lot of spare to trim off the ends, but better to have spare than not enough. So now for me the colors start to suggest themselves. Like, what do you want to do with this? We've got yellow. We could go with like a red, orange, yellow kind of a theme. Stick with that the whole time, or we can just go random. We got nice blues and greens, all sorts of different things. So again, I'll do the next layer off camera and check in and see what's going on. You will find that you'll need to bring these knots a little bit farther as you go down, of course, because this is a curved surface, so they won't be tied up quite as close to the ones above it. See you in a bit. Okay, welcome back. I have the third layer done here, of course, in this wonderful clear pink color. I'm probably going to go with this regular clear kind of white color for the next one, and maybe go symmetrical and do pink, red, and orange for the way out. So like white and then pink, red, orange. Be careful that you have enough beads. Don't start one until you know for sure. Keep in mind that there's 13 pairs, and then each one has 4, so you need 52 for each row here, all the way across, and that adds up pretty quickly. And it's easy to get lost in one of these giant assortments and to think you automatically have enough, and then start counting and realize that you're short by quite a few. So I may dip into my opaques over here as well and use something from there. So we'll see. I like to make them either symmetrical or, maybe random and just go some weird color combination next, just like blue and green, just to make it kind of cool looking, but we'll see. Anyways, see you in a bit. Alright, layer number 3 done. Nice clear white. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for the next one, so I guess you'll see pretty soon. I might just pop back in and do the next 2 layers or 3 layers off camera, and by that time it'll be pretty much finished. So see you in a bit. By the way, FYI, each of these layers, each tying and beading each of these layers takes about 30 minutes or so for each one. So a couple hours worth of work so far put in. It's tedious, but it's not terribly difficult. So like I said, it's a great thing to do while you're watching a movie or watching TV. I'm watching Game of Thrones in the background right now, so see you in a bit. Alright, and we're back. And here's the finished product. Obviously, there's a lot of excess line on the end. So that can be trimmed off very easily. Like I said before, I either like to use a twisty tie on the top here, but a rubber band works well too. And again, if you're doing this for a school setting, rubber bands tend to go missing and get shot across the room. But for our purposes here, I'll probably just put a rubber band around the top a bunch of times. The nice thing is about the rubber bands is you can easily change the tension of the beads. You just slide it up or down, and the beads either get much closer to the gourd and produce like a tighter sound, or farther away and much more looser, kind of a tone to it. It just depends on your preference or your purpose. So let's see, a couple more of these knots. One more, I think, should do the trick. Get it nice and tight. Okay, and there we go. So there's our finished product. It's got a nice bright sound to it, and again, a lot of that is because of the gourd. So if we tighten this a little bit more, yeah, it doesn't change it too much. We need a little bit more, and then it doesn't move around quite as much. But yeah, it's a nice looking little Shekere. Took me a couple hours worth of bead work, and that's basically it. When you trim the ends off, you know, some people just leave this the way it is, but I think it's a little bit unwieldy. Trim it with a scissors, and then melt the ends here so they don't unravel. If they do, they'll become like a big poof of hair, almost like Albert Einstein's head or something like that. So, of course, this is with the ends trimmed off. I just took a scissors and, you know, chopped them off, and then held a lighter underneath here to kind of melt the ends. As a last thing, I did not glue every knot like I said I might. I don't know if you can see right here. These are glued. This whole row all the way around is glued, as is this one. I did not glue the first one and the third one. I just didn't think it really warranted it. They didn't seem to be slipping too terribly much, but you notice some of the knots are a little bit bigger, which is why I did put a glued area every once in a while to kind of bookend everything and keep it from sliding. So here's my finished product. Has a really good sound, actually. Pretty happy with that. So again, thanks for watching.